invite you to take your Bibles, turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 9. It'll be on the screen up here. It's good to turn and see it in your own Bible. You may want to make a mark or two, note or two as we go through, and we'll discuss this chapter. 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9 are about giving, and I started that chapter 8 with sort of a subtitle about godly giving, and then providing things honest in the sight of men, and just doing things in a good way. I'm not really sure how to divide chapter 9. There is sort of a division between the first 5 chapters and the last, as you will see, in which he's trying to encourage them to give, and then the latter part he really explains what giving is all about. But I'm just going to call it more on godly giving. I heard a story this morning in Sunday school about a stingy old fella that used to sit there, and when the plate would come by for him to give, you know, when we passed the plate for the contribution, he'd have his dollar all wadded up real tight and folded in his hand. And when the plate would come by, he'd hold it over that plate and just kind of throw it in there and let the plate pass. Well, let me tell you, I don't know how much a man like that gives, but everything he gives does good for those to whom he gives. But it didn't do the giver any good. I mean, the giver would go home angry about that. Now, that's not the way to give. It's more blessed to give than receive. But in order to enjoy that blessing, you need to have the right attitude about giving and the right understanding of it. And in this chapter, Paul is going to explain some of those things in a wonderful way. So let's go into the text. There's memory work. This is the memory work, and there'll be blanks then Wednesday night when we go over this. 2 Corinthians chapters 9, verses 4 and 5. Lest happily, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared, that we say not ye, should be ashamed in the same confident boasting. Therefore I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren that they would go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof ye had noticed before, that the same might be ready as a matter of bounty and not as of covetousness. Well, we'll explain that in its context, but those were the 2 verses selected for the memory work. I think I would have selected a couple of different passages myself, but those are the ones that will be on the test when we have the Bible Bowl. So make a note of that. Now let's get into the text. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 1 through 3. For as touching the ministering to the saints, it is superfluous for me to write unto you. Superfluous. That's kind of like that word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, isn't it? I mean, you got to practice to say that word. What is he talking about here? He is saying, I don't need to tell you about the need to minister to the saints in Jerusalem. Now, that's our loss. We know the saints in Jerusalem were in need. We don't know the details about why they were in need, and we surmise from different things. I sort of wish Paul had, well, let me tell you again about why they're in such a need. And it's a chronic need. It is continuing for a long period of time, and so they've been in need in Jerusalem, seems like, from the very beginning. Well, he doesn't get into all that. Evidently, the Corinthians knew there was a need, and they didn't have any trouble with the fact that now here's a legitimate need. Neither did they have trouble with the fact that they had a forwardness of mind. They wanted to give, to relieve this need. And so they understood that. But he says this, for I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia, that Achaia was ready a year ago, and your zeal hath provoked many. Yet I have sent brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf, that as I said, ye may be ready. It was a year ago. Paul had some communication with them about giving. Oh, they were ready. They were willing. they had every intent to give on that a year ago. And they made such an impression on Paul, those in Achaia, that when he went into Macedonia to encourage them to give, now the Corinthians, they said they're ready. They're going to be part of this. They're going to do that. And that encouraged those of Macedonia to give. And you remember that last chapter? Those in Macedonia had given more than Paul had expected. But now, what about those in Corinth? Have they not followed through on what they intended? Are they doing as they said? And he says this, lest happily if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared. And then he said this, we, that we say not ye, should be ashamed in this same confident boasting. What if Paul had those from Macedonia gone with him after he'd been bragging on those in Corinth and how they'd given, and then they had given, that those who were least able to give had given an abundance. And they follow Paul down to Corinth, and they get down there, and those in Corinth who were more able to give had not given very much. Well, if that was the case, they'd be ashamed of themselves. Paul would be ashamed for bragging on them, and he said, we, not to say ye, would be ashamed on this behalf. And so, to prevent that problem from occurring, he's sending them on down and says, now look, this is what's happened up here, and I'm counting on you now. I've been bragging on you, and you need to follow through on just what you said. And so that's what he's explaining to them. And then in verse 5, therefore I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren that they would go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof ye had noticed before, that the same might be ready as a matter of bounty and not as of covetousness. What's this matter of bounty? Well, that's to freely give, to joyfully give, to liberally give, and to have a large amount ready and not get down there and then they're lacking, and then they're not ready to give and they hadn't given it thought. And so they're making up the lack, but they're not doing it with the attitude they ought to have. They're doing it with covetousness, like that old miser that'd clench that dollar and throw it in the plate. Well, he don't want them to give like that. And so he's getting them ready. He says, now look, this is the situation, and you said you'd do that, and I believe you, and I've been bragging on you. Now don't let this mess up. We will be ashamed, and you will too, if you don't follow through on this. But now, in the latter part of the chapter, he's going to explain some things to us about giving, that if we understand that, what we're about to read, then we're going to understand how it is that it's more blessing to give than to receive. Look what he says in verse 6. For this I say, he that soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. But he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. What about a farmer? He says, well, it says I need to plant this many seeds to an acre. I don't want to do that. I'm going to cut that in half. And he just plants half the amount that he ought. I'll tell you, he's not going to get a large harvest. He's going to sow sparingly, and he is going to reap sparingly. But if you sow bountifully, you reap bountifully, you see. Now, that is a principle of giving. It's more blessed to give than receive. But let me tell you, those who receive the greatest blessing are those that sow bountifully. Now, if you give a little, well, you get a little blessing out of that. But if you give bountifully, you get a larger blessing out of that. It's not always a material blessing that comes in return. It's greater. We're going to see some of the kinds of blessings that come in return. But you'll be blessed. But to give bountifully is to receive a bountiful blessing. Listen, if you can swap material things for spiritual blessings, you've made a good deal. You sure have. And if you want bountiful spiritual blessings, then you give bountiful material things. See, in order to, that results in that and receives that. Now that's a principle taught elsewhere. Luke 6 and verse 38, give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet, withal it shall be measured to you again. Think about grains. You're giving grain, and you give, and it's given to you a good measure. Now you know you can measure things, and you're kind of a little slight on the measure, or you can heap it up. You see, that's a heaped up measure is a good measure, isn't it? Good measure. And they pour that into your basket and then press it down. See if we can get more in there. And shake it. You know how you sometimes shake things? It just kind of makes more room and you get more. That's how it's going to be given back to you. Matthew 6, 19 through 21. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. For where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. Do you want your heart on material things? That's where a lot of people have their heart. Set right on things of this earth, and you know what they see? They see it rust. They see it corrupted. They see it stolen. They see it slipping away. You want your heart on spiritual things. You want your heart on heavenly things. Those are eternal things. Put your treasure in on eternal things. I should have saved this for a little later in the lesson, but I remember a long time ago a Bible teacher that I had wrote this on the chalkboard where he was teaching. He said, what you spend, you use. What you keep, you lose. What you give away is yours forever. And so think about that when it comes to all the blessings that God has blessed us with. What are we going to do with them? Here, Matthew 19 in verse 29. Everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. Now there's things on this earth. I tell you, some people had to give up things in order to become Christians. What if a young person here is attending and they respond to the gospel, and we baptize them into Christ? When they come up out of that water, they tell us, now I can't go home. They told me if I'd obey the gospel, I could not return to my house. Why, everyone here that has a house would say, well, you have my house. You come with me. She'd receive 100-fold more, wouldn't she? Or he or she, if they did that. That's what happens. And so when we give, we receive, and we receive more than we give. Proverbs 11 and verse 24. There is that scattereth, and yet increaseth. And there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. And so that idea of sowing sparingly and reaping sparingly, or sowing bountifully and reaping bountifully, it's not just unique here to Paul in the book of 2 Corinthians. It's taught throughout the Scriptures. And then he says, let every man according as he has purposed in our heart. Okay, let's start catching this if we can list them. Number one, give bountifully. Okay? That's one of the ways for godly giving is to give bountifully. Number two, give purposefully, as he purposeth in his heart. Now, if I was one of these guys that were expert in fundraisers, you know, sometimes churches hire people that are good at fundraising, and they'll come, and I'll tell you, they'll throw everything in the book at you, they'll put you on guilt trips, and then they make this real emotional plea and try to get you to cough up a little more money, and maybe you just, out of an emotional response to what you hear, you give. But then later, you may not feel so good about that. You might feel like, well, they've just taken advantage of me. They got me all emotional and teared up, and I really shouldn't have done that. And people can do you that way. Okay, that's not godly giving. Godly giving is not about manipulating people and trying to just extract money from them and see how much they can squeeze out of them and make some emotional play. It's purposeful. What you have to do, you understand it. And then you understand it, then you make some decisions, some rational decisions. Now don't get caught into this trap, thinking, okay, I've got this much. What percentage of that belongs to God? No, you don't understand it yet if you're thinking that. You see, it's all God's. You're stewards of it. It's all God's. Out of all of this that you have, that you are stewards of, that belongs to God, you've got to decide what you're going to do with it. And a certain part of that, you're going to be giving to charitable things and such as that. So you've got to think about it that way. But you've got to do it purposefully. I told the young people in class this morning, someday they're going to have to make budgets because money's tight. Especially when money's tight, you really need a budget. Where's my money going? And then you start that budget off, says, okay, let's start it right here. Giving. And set an amount out right there at the top of your budget. Now, I don't know what percent you go, but we talk about a tithe, and that's not binding on us. That might be a good guideline. I'm making $200 a week. I'm going to give $20. And then work out your budget. Can you work it out? You might get down there in the budget and says, man, I can't get by on that. I can't give $20. I'm going to have to reduce it. Or you might come down to the end and says, this came out pretty good. I think I can up that to $25. So but budget it. Think about it. Make it a purposeful thing and not just a random act. So give purposefully. Think it through. And give something that is bountiful, but give it purposefully. Now, so let him give not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. That's the other way to give cheerfully. Be glad that you are able to do that. Another little trick I taught the kids this morning in class, and this isn't exactly laid out in the Bible, but all of this is Bible principles. That is how to have financial peace. Now, I'm not talking about how to have financial success. That might be different. There's a lot of people successfully financially that are not at peace. I'm talking about how to have financial peace. And if you get a choice between having financial peace and having financial success, you want financial peace. That's what you want. Here's how you do it. Earn what you have honorably. Now, you might be able to cheat somebody, or you might be able to steal something, or you might win a gamble or something like that. But listen, that is not honorable. From then on, what you enjoy out of that is going to be tinged with the guilt of how you obtain those goods, and that's not peace. Now, just earn what you have honorably. And number two, avoid debt. Maybe I ought to say avoid unnecessary debt. I know there's some businesses that's how you do the business. You go to debt and then you pay it off and you make a little and that's just good business. It's like a fellow said, it's not whether you're going to debt or not, it's what you go into debt for. Now, if you're going to debt is a part of an investment thing or that's one thing. If you're going to debt for a vacation or a boat or something like that, look, if it's just your pleasure, just avoid that debt. So avoid unnecessary debt. And then number three, be a giver. If you can be a giver, you're going to find that you always have an abundance. If you didn't, you wouldn't be able to give. And you don't have to be rich to give. Even if you're not blessed well financially, you can find something to give. And when it does, it kind of relieves you of that stress of wondering if I have enough. That's just one of the psychological parts of it. And so be a giver and plan on being a giver with the things that you receive. I'll tell you, those three things, you put that into practice, financial peace. And that's what you desire. Now don't be greedy. Be glad you can do it. A cheerful giver. And then God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound into every good work. Am I going to be able to do that? Will I have enough? Okay, give with faith in God's promises. He said He'll take care of you. He said you'll reap bountifully. Well, trust God and give. Now purpose it. Think it through, make it rational, make it reasonable, make it something doable, and then do it. And do it in faith that this is not going to put me in a hard situation because I trust God and I'm going to do this. And then he goes on, as it is written, He that disperseth abroad, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. Now that's coming from Psalm 112 and verse 9. He that disperseth, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness endureth forever. His horn shall be exalted with honor. And so a giving man is a man that's an honored man. And he might not always be rich, but he'll always be looked on as a righteous man, as a good man, because of his giving. And then this next one is a little more difficult. Now, he that ministereth seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Well, it's kind of like Paul, as I study this, figure that it looks like he's drawing from two different parts of the Scriptures and paraphrasing and putting them together. This sounds like these two verses to me. Isaiah 55 and verse 10, the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. But then it says in Hosea chapter 10 and verse 12, sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy. Break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord till He come and rain righteousness upon you. Now put that together. He that ministers seed to the sower, both ministers bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increaseth the fruits of your righteousness. It's like Paul's pulling all this together from these passages and paraphrasing that. But what are we talking about here? I tell you, God gives you seed to sow. Now, you can consume it. You could just grind it all into flour and make your bread and eat your bread instead of sowing your seed. But if you sow your seed, or at least if you sow part of it, keep back part of it, eat a little, and sow it, what you sow will increase bountifully. You'll have more if you sow. If you consume it all, you're not going to get any more. But if you sow, you're going to produce more. And then this has a spiritual application to it. Increase the fruit of your righteousness. See? That's what Paul is wanting them to do. Now, 1 Corinthians 9, 11 through 13. Watch this. This is important. Being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. For the administration of this service. Now, peg that word service. I'm going to get back to that. Not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings unto God. Whilst by the experiment of this ministration, they glorify God. What are we talking about? Listen, you give. And that gift then is collected and gone to those who are in need. And what do those who are in need do? They thank God. It says it twice, they thank God. And what? They glorify God. You see, by what you give, you can increase thanks and glory for God. And notice that word service. For the administration of this service. That's an interesting word. That word is the word that is used to describe the work of the priest when they take the offering and bring it and slay the lamb and prepare the wood and lay it on the altar and see to it that it's consumed and then clean up after all of that. That's the service. That's the word. What is it? It's a service of worship. Now there are those that don't think giving is part of worship. I think they need to study these verses. Giving results in thanksgiving to God and glory to God. And it's rendering a service, like as that service of the priest when they're serving for worship. Here's how to give. Give worshipfully. Let that be part of your offering unto God, and not just unto men, but unto God. And give with that in mind. Something else here. It says, talks about your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men. What are we talking about? Well, unto them, that's the saints in Jerusalem. That's who he's talking about. Given unto them. What's to all men? Well, that's those that aren't the saints. There have been some that have thought the only thing you can do with the Lord's money is help the Lord's people. That's all you can do with it. You can't help someone that's not a Christian with the Lord's money. And that is just not so. Here they are giving, and they're not just giving to help them, but that gift can help all men. Let me show you how that plays out. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 15, see that none render evil for evil unto any man, but follow that which is good, both among yourselves, well, that's among the Christians, and to all men. You're not just supposed to be good to the brothers in Christ, you're supposed to be good to all men, aren't you? Look what it says in Galatians 6 and verse 10. As we therefore have opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially those who are the household of faith. You see how the all men is compared to those who are the household of faith? Look what it says in Acts 24:17. This is that very gift that Paul is talking about in 2 Corinthians. He comes on trial. What are you doing in Jerusalem and why are you here? And he explains it. And he says, now after many years I came to bring alms to my nation and offerings. It wasn't just for the church. Paul understood from the beginning this would be also, it'd be especially to the household of faith, but it would be for others that would be in need too among his nation. That's among the Jews. And so it's not just that we can only use the Lord's money for the Lord's people. Look, if there's someone in need, we can help them. We're authorized to do it. In fact, we're encouraged to do it as we have opportunity to do. I want you to notice something else. Think of the larger context of what's going on here. Paul had been preaching to the Gentiles. When he would come back preaching from the Gentiles, there would be those among the Jews, those who had become Christians. And they would say, well, unless the Gentiles are circumcised, they can't be saved. Listen, they're still acting like Gentiles. They're still in that Gentile culture. They've got to be Judaized. They've got to become Jews like our culture and eat our foods our way and keep our feasts and our things. And if they can't be circumcised, they can't be saved. That's the way it was if a Gentile wanted to become a Jew, but that's not the way it was for a Gentile to become a Christian. And some of those Christian Jews had a real problem accepting the Gentiles. And one of the things Paul is doing is He's collecting this gift to give to those Jews to open their hearts to receive the Gentiles as their brethren. And look what he says here. They glorify God for your professed subjection to the gospel of Christ. They're going to receive this gift, and thank God that the Gentiles have received the gospel. And that means they're accepting them. It goes on down. And by their prayer for you, they're going to be praying for you. And that which long after you for the exceeding grace of God in you. Listen, this is going to help break down those barriers, those emotional barriers that they may have had when they realize these Gentiles that we've been having trouble with, they have given us all of this to help us. Thank God that they're our brethren in Christ. That's what's going to happen. It's going to open that up. I tell you, a gift can open a heart. That's one of the reasons we need to help those without, don't we? We might be able to open their hearts and receive the gospel in that heart. Now, he ends saying, thanks be to God for his unspeakable gift, which to me, this seems to refer back to that gift of Christ. Look what Christ gave for us, and to be followers of him, that we need to be givers. Here's what it says, how to give. Give bountifully. Give purposefully. Give with cheer. Give in faith. And give worshipfully in a way that will glorify God. And isn't that how Christ gave of himself for us? Well, yes, it is. And if we understand this about giving is a joy. Now, we are never going to pervert the gospel of the truth to say, okay, now that we got you, we want your money. I mean, that is no way to think. That's not what it is. But let me tell you what. You understand giving? And you're saying, I'm glad I can be a part of something I can give to. Something I can give to with confidence and help. And that is the joy that comes with it. But you have to understand it. And then understanding it, giving, is a blessing. As he talks about over and over in the previous chapter, the grace of God given to us, that we have the ability and opportunity to give. Now, in giving, of course, we need to give ourselves to the Lord. That's what they did. Give of ourselves, not grudgingly, cheerfully, honorably, in faith, purposefully. Give ourselves to the Lord. Be baptized into Christ. Live that new life. And know all the spiritual joys that have been laid up in store for us. And so I invite you to do that as we sing this invitation.